Hawks and Lakers still to come. You can catch it on NBA League Pass. Kyle Kuzma, who had been working within the Frank Vogel defense, said that he was maybe working on that so much. Kind of the offensive game was taking a little bit of a side, but not lately. That stepped up. And the defense, it has been there. Sometimes not all 4 quarters, but it's been enough. For one game against the Bulls, they're down 15. They only allowed 32 in the second half. Here's former Game Time co-host of mine, Mr. Frank Vogel.
Frank, sometimes the NBA schedule favors you and sometimes it doesn't. In this case, you had a day off yesterday. Atlanta had to play here. Does that make an impact in the way that you approach a game at all, or is it the same as usual?
It really doesn't. Whether a team played the night before or not, we do our work, we prepare. Sundays we've been, we may have a shoot around in the morning. Typically we'll come down here and have an afternoon walkthrough, and that was the case for today. But whether a team played the night before doesn't really impact anything for us.
What's the key with Trae Young? What have you seen from him this season?
He's a monster. He can beat you in a number of ways. He has the 4-point range off the bounce, which makes him one of the toughest guys in the NBA to defend. And what makes it tough is when you try to double team him, he has the ability to beat the double team, and still get into the paint, whether it's turning the corner or splitting or rejecting or the various ways you can beat a trap. He has that ability because of his speed. And when you add on 9 assists a game, he's sharing it as well and getting his teammates involved. So it doesn't matter what their record is. It doesn't matter what happened last night. This team came in and beat Denver a couple games ago, and we're going to have to be at our best to beat them.
Wondering what you thought of the rotation with Avery out, and if you're going to plan on going the same way tonight.
Yeah, we'll start KCP again. I think he deserves a chance after the performance, the two-way performance the other night. He always brings consistent defensive energy, and obviously gave us some scoring punch the other night. So he'll be in the starting lineup again.
What do you think lacked a little bit about scoring in the lineups last game when LeBron was out?
We have Rondo in the mix now, and we were playing against a team that was trying to junk the game up. You know what I mean? So when we're trying to work in new guys and the team's playing, trying to trick you with matchups, putting big guys on smalls and, just trying to bring some confusion to the game. Credit Luke for being creative, and I think it just slowed us down a little bit. But, ultimately we had a pretty strong offensive night on a slow-paced type of game, and, something hopefully we're better with tonight.
Hi, there's Frank Vogel talking about the Lakers, and a good place to go to talk about here, obviously, Bisha, when you think about where these players were and now kind of how they develop in their new roles. And I want to go back to Kuzma for a second because he's one of the players centrally focused there. Everybody was looking for a third guy. Can he be that guy? What have you seen adjustment-wise that he's had to make or is currently now making in his game to fit with AD and LeBron on the floor?
Well, I think he has to take what the defense gives him. He's a guy that's not afraid of the moment. He offensively is going to, hunt down shots. So I don't think that they worry about him there. I think it was defensively finding a fit for him and getting him to understand the schemes and where he needs to be. Having coached on Frank Vogel's staff for 2 years, I know how much time he puts in terms of film work and a practice, probably 80% of the practice is defensive work and drills. And so getting these guys to buy into that amount of time and that amount of detail on the defensive end and what you're supposed to be, where you're supposed to be on the floor is probably the biggest area that they were concerned about in terms of Kuzma.
Let's talk about defense and culture, and I'll use the team we were talking about the last segment because, that he used to be with the Warriors, right? Because, Sam, when you watch that team, Kevin Durant, when he was on it, you would say, well, the best player is hunting down blocks, playing defense, going after loose balls. We know what Draymond does. How much does the continued, it may not be all 82 with the load management 4 quarters, but for LeBron and AD to buy in and show it, for Frank, for the rest of those guys to give the effort that coach is looking for from this group?
That's all that matters. Look, once LeBron James and AD says we're buying in defensively, it's a wrap because everyone else has to. You have no choice, and that's why it's important. And you hear Coach K say this all the time. You have to coach your best players because if you just coach those 2 guys in any shape, form, or fashion, everybody else going to listen. Anytime you say LeBron, AD, Everybody is going to perk up. And then when you start talking about where you need to be offensively, where you're supposed to be defensively, and those guys respond, and then when you go and put that tape on the next day, and they're where they're supposed to be, and the coach is holding everyone accountable, that's when you know you got a good team. And then on top of it, you got LeBron James and Anthony Davis. If they've bought in, those two guys, a lot of times, you know this, B, when you got players like that, all you have to do is worry about coaching, the X and O's. They're going to manage the locker room, and they're going to manage everybody's personality and everybody's mindset, because they're there for one purpose, to win a championship. And they're not going to let anybody else in that locker room come and be amongst that team unless they're single-minded with their focus.
When you sit there and you look at all that happened in the offseason with the Magic and the way he left and Pelinka, you got to give Rob, I think, some credit, because the pieces that they have gotten seem to fit. Danny Green, who we're looking at, thank you, timing upstairs, has worked out. Avery Bradley, a guy who we know can still shoot the ball, but really the defense and the attention to defense. The guys they brought in do the two things really they were lacking, and that is perimeter defense and shoot the ball. Those two have been big factors early.
They have been, and you know, people don't realize when Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson came into their positions a couple of years ago, it was their first time ever doing that job. Rob Pelinka had never been a general manager before. He had been an agent. Magic had never been a president and run a team. As great a basketball player as he was, he had never played that role or that position before. And so there were mistakes that were made. There were errors, just in terms of just learning what to do in certain situations. But now being in the job for 2.5 years or so and having a better feel for it, they did do a great job this offseason putting pieces together that fit with the guys that they had in the mainstay, the two cornerstones in LeBron and AD, adding the shooting, but also adding some defensive-minded guys like Danny Green, who plays both sides of the ball, but also Avery Bradley, especially because you're playing LeBron at the point guard. You can't expect for him to guard those little quick point guards on the other end, but Avery Bradley is a guy that can be an irritant and is one of the best on-ball defenders. And then a coach that is more defensive-minded like Frank Vogel. And then also having two other head coaches on your bench under Frank Vogel, and Jason Kidd and Lionel Hollins, who have years and years of experience. Jason, obviously, more recently a player than Lionel was. But, all of those things combined, really bodes for the job that Rob has done.
And the other thing is the perimeter defense, Sam, important because so many teams are trying to take jump shots against them, because in the middle, you're talking about clogged on defense when they've got Dwight and AD, or when JaVale, they've got a lot of size in the paint. So we talk about it, we were joking before, if you missed us during the last, it's like a telethon here on this Sunday night edition. I'm new here on these Sundays. But the paint usually wide open. We see guys go in. There's no space for that. So you're forcing teams to want to shoot from the outside, and now you've got the guys who on ball can handle it defensively.
Think about when those guys do this. Look at the length you have to drive around. Then when you finally get around those guys, you got AD, JaVale McGee, and Dwight Howard at times back there patrolling the paint. And those guys are not worried about, JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard are not worried about fouls. They're going after everything. They're trying to block and shut down that paint with everything. And the thing that to give Rob Pelinka credit, when you see how he put this roster together, I guarantee you Frank Vogel hasn't had to have one conversation about roles. Why? When that LeBron James and Anthony Davis walk in that room in front of the team, everybody falls right in place. You know what your role are. If you're a shooter, you shoot. If you're a defender like Avery Bradley, you play D. If you're Rondo, when you get healthy, you run the team. Dwight, run, rebound, defend. He didn't have to say any of that. All he has to do, like B. Shaw said, spend 80% of his time making sure they play D. The offense will take care of itself. All you got to do is put LeBron James and Anthony Davis in a pick and roll and spread everybody else out. Hey, they're going to make something happen. So Frank Vogel, give him credit, give Rob Pelinka and the Lakers credit. They put together the right type of team, the right guys with the right personality, and now they got the right coach in Frank Vogel. He's just focused on defense, not worried about the offense so much. And look how this team is playing right now.
I'll tell you what, if we talk about coaching and not getting the attention they deserve for the culture they're building, and I know it's beginning steps, but in talking to Vince in the time he's been here, to people around the area, Lloyd's did a great job with this group. And you saw the job he did last year, Brian, with Trey. because everybody looked at the numbers in the first half, and because they weren't watching Hawks games nationally, clearly, they thought he just can't shoot as well as we thought. It was bad shot selection because he was trying to do too much. Now, he will hit some of those crazy shots now, but you see more control. He's into the paint. He's using it. Even here you see it, the assists. Everything seems to have kind of upped a bit from what we saw when he walked in.
Well, now he's had a season to go around the league, to learn the personnel that he's playing against a little bit better, understands the system, and I'm sure as the season went along last year and leading into this year, had many conversations with Lloyd Pierce about what's a good shot, not a good shot, how to be more efficient in those situations. And so you're starting to see that come to fruition now in his second season, just feeling more comfortable being in that role. And it's tough when you are shooting the ball from, as they call, 4-point range. It's tough for a coach to allow you to shoot those kind of shots. But if you can make them consistently, and obviously he patterned his game after Steph Curry, who makes those shots and has become famous at making those shots, you know, he's falling right in line with that. And the fact that he's a willing passer and he does, you know, on any given night get close to double figures in assists as well, it makes the guys love to play with him.
You've seen some of the crazy shots. They showed one just before where he looked at, I was here the other night, he looked at the Nuggets bench, and I'm sure they didn't like that, but I mean, I think even he is sitting there knowing that he's on a different level with the shot making. I know we're not covering 94. Guys, Muggsy Bogues don't exist anymore, where Smitty will sit there and tell me all year and complain during breaks about being a point guard for a year because of that. But what are you doing defensively as a coach, Sam, when the guy really could step over half court, 2 dribbles, and you're in trouble?
Well, there's nothing you can't do because what he does, same thing Steph Curry does. They make you extend your defense out so far to where you're uncomfortable. Listen, in football, the closer you get to the goal line, the harder it is to pass the ball, right? Because that end zone only going to stand so far. The thing about Trae Young, when he comes to go out half court, and just think about it, when they bring a big up to set a brush screen to just knock that point guard off a little bit, what do you do if you're the big? If you come up, he's going to drive around you. If you stay back, you're planted lead-footed on the ground, and you got Trae Young coming at you full speed with a live dribble. All you can do is guess, and 90% of the time, you're going to guess wrong. The thing that you have to do with him, you got to be physical. When he drives to the basket, you got to put him on the ground, good, clean, hard fouls, and last but not least, when he gives it up, don't let him get it back. Coach told me this when I was a little bitty kid playing 7th grade basketball, rec league. He said, son, if you can't guard him, when he gives it up, don't let him catch it back. I've never seen anyone score.
Steph does in the corner all the time.
I've never seen anyone score in the history of the game without the basketball.
And I think that there's one thing that you can add to that, along with that list that you just made. On the defensive end, you gotta go at him.
Yep.
And you can't allow him to expend all his energy on the offensive end, going at you, shooting where he wants, having you on the string, yanking you around, and then have a night off on the defensive end. So you got to go down. He's a smaller point guard. You got to post him up. You got to have screen setters come and set good, hot, solid screens on him to wear him down on that end as well. So he just can't use all his energy.
Multiple screening rows, keep hitting him, and then by that 3rd or 4th quarter, those guys start winding down.
They're not the LeBron AD duo. I don't mean these two, they are. But Trae Young and John Collins were working together, building something last year, losing Collins. Look, the 25 games and why and all of that aside, it just takes away. The Hawks aren't winning the championship this year. Don't want to offend anybody here in Atlanta. But there was something kind of almost all the last year into the way that it started. I'm starting to feel okay. It's becoming more of an interesting thing to watch here. They come off the floor. There's been more time for kids. And it's interesting because we talked to Markelle Fultz tonight, right? Top overall pick, and then everybody kind of cramping down. Cam Reddish is a guy who was a year before he came out. He was the he was going to be, not Zion, not R.J. Barrett, not anybody. It was him. He was the dude. And because he had trouble shooting, maybe didn't fit in, it was kind of like the full story from day one, people killing him till he had a couple of huge shots in the tournament. He's played well. DeAndre Hunter, the young kids they got can play some defense and length. We talk about the Lakers, a lot of guys who could sit there, position versatility, 6'7", 6'8", with a lot of length, Brian.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that happens, too, is that players have to also show that they don't only rely on their jump shot. And I think that was a knock on Cam Reddish coming out of Duke, was that what else can he do beside, shoot the ball from the perimeter? And so, you want to see him pump fake when guys are closing out on him, take it to the basket, get fouled, be able to hit mid-range, but finish through contact and, and those things as well. And so, you make it really, really difficult for yourself when you only make a living from hitting the shots, because your shots are not going to always go in.
Man, I got a chance to coach Cam Reddish when he was in high school at Adidas Nation. You see the talent. He reminds me of Tim Thomas, with 6'8", athletic, long, can play both ends of the floor. It's just going to take him, look, he's playing well, but you see this kid development. It's going to take him a little bit to grow into this role and learn about the NBA. But if you look at the young talent that this Hawks team have, man, their future got to be exciting, because I'm telling you put anybody out there that can play with Trae Young, he's going to make them better, because you have to expend so much energy guarding him, and the thing that he's devastating at, other than shooting, is getting rid of the basketball, finding open guys.
And I'll tell you what, they've drafted very well.
Yes.
Because Herter, we didn't even mention him. Wow. So many people around the NBA last year were like, wait, who is that? With the way he could shoot the ball. Trae Young, he's going to want to put on a show out in the spotlight of L.A., where, yes, LeBron will be there. And the Lakers have been red hot. We're just 15 minutes away. Trae and the Hawks against the Lakers.